Did the luggage arrive? Starting today, my parents are moving in with us, so please be nice. That was the first thing he said, joking around. As if I wasn't already furious with him. How self-centered can this man be? That's the situation, so I'm counting on you. I know what he's up to. He wants to keep me in check by bringing his parents over, while also expecting me to sort various things out for him. Anger rushes through me, but I quickly smirk. Yeah, I just moved out of my house, too. Duh? I hold back laughter at his dumbfounded voice. Apparently, he forgot who owns that house. Even Sean, who's listening to our conversation, is trying hard not to laugh. Because that house originally belonged to my grandparents and I'm the owner now. So whose permission were you planning to get for moving in? I refuse to let such people into my house. A mother-in-law who enjoys tormenting her daughter-in-law, and a father-in-law who's obsessed with his grandson. And then you thought I didn't know? You'll pay the price for this, rest assured. I'm Naomi Woods, a 32-year-old working mother on parental leave. I have a husband, Jack, and a 1-year-old son, Ethan. Ethan has just started walking, so I can't take my eyes off him. His wobbly walk is so endearing, and it's healing when he calls me with his little mouth. Ethan really loves his mom. I met Jack at work. My family runs a traditional bakery, baking delicious bread every day. I spend my days smiling with my parents and younger brother. Excuse me, ma'am. Could I have your name and contact information? One day, a regular customer asked me this. His face turned red as he asked, and I found him cute. We started dating. Naomi, your cooking is delicious. Really? Thank you. Yeah. So will you keep cooking for me? By my side? And so we got married. My parents were overjoyed about our marriage, but my much younger brother, Sean, always had a serious look on his face. Still, he didn't oppose it, and I believe he was happy for us. My dad's shop is going to be taken over by Sean, so living with us would just wear Jack out. My dad suggested, so we're living in my late grandparents' house, just the three of us. I was planning to watch Ethan grow up here with Jack. One day, I went shopping with Ethan. Holding my hand, Ethan walked with effort. Oh, Ethan, he came with me. Now say hi to Grandma. Hey, Ethan! After buying bread at my family's bakery, my parents and the regulars greeted Ethan with smiles. Ethan, unshy around others, smiled back. Since our family bakery and our house are about an hour's drive apart, I usually visit my parents' place about once a month. And when Ethan and I return home in a good mood. What? No way. The front door was unlocked. As I opened the door, I saw familiar shoes, and as expected, I sighed. I've asked you to let us know in advance when you're coming over. Oh, you're finally back? Where on earth have you been? My mother-in-law, ignoring my words, lounged and watched TV. She probably entered using the spare key Jack must have given her. No matter how many times I tell her, she never listens. Sighing again, I thought to myself, come on, don't just stand there. Get moving and do some housework. I'll take care of Ethan. She picked up Ethan and told me to clean up the mess she made eating her snacks. I wished she would clean up after herself and not touch my son with her snack-covered hands. When I told her this, she grumbled, "How dare you, a daughter-in-law, as if I'm dirty or something." And then to Ethan, "You have a scary mommy, don't you?" "Please don't say weird things to Ethan," I replied and took sleepy Ethan to his room. While doing the chores, she kept making snide remarks. Honestly, I'd rather ignore her, but if I took my eyes off her, she would try to take Ethan away. "You're boring to talk to?" "I'm going home today," she said and left. That was a relief for me, so I sent her off with a smile. What a handful my mother-in-law is, I muttered and finished the interrupted chores. I understood she wanted to see Ethan, her only grandchild, but I really wished she would stop using her spare key to barge into our house. "Hey, can you please take back the spare key from your mom?" "What? Why?" After Jack got home, I told him about his mother. He looked uneasy even after hearing me out. I glared at him. "If you don't take back the spare key from her, I'm changing the locks. And this time, you won't get a key." All right. I'll take it back from her. Is that okay?" He agreed reluctantly after I pushed him. I thought this would make things better. But I was wrong. "Can you come with me to my parents' house this weekend to get the key?" Jack asked me that weekend. I really didn't want to. but thinking it would be better to see it with my own eyes, I went to his parents' house with Ethan. "You've finally arrived. I have a lot of housework for you to do, so get moving. Ethan will be fine with us." As soon as I entered my in-laws' house, Ethan was taken away by my in-laws, and I was saddled with chores. I glanced at Jack, but he stubbornly avoided my gaze. I've been tricked. He set me up? That's what I thought, but it's tough in a 3-against-1 situation. Besides, I didn't want to stay long in a dusty and dirty house like this, so I quickly got to work on the chores. While I was cleaning, I heard Ethan's loud cries. "Ethan, what's wrong?" I rushed over in a panic and found Ethan crying and struggling in his grandfather's arms. He reached out for me, so I took Ethan from his grandfather. "What did you do to Ethan?" "Oh, stop it. We didn't do anything." "That's right." As I glared at Jack, who had been ignoring everything, he started to explain what happened. Apparently, Ethan tried to follow me, and his grandfather caught him and forcefully held him, interfering with his attempt. His grandfather then carelessly played with him, ignoring Ethan's desire to be with me. Ethan is such a crybaby for a boy, right? It's because he's being raised by a lousy daughter-in-law like you. He should really be with us. I can't leave Ethan here. Excuse us. I hugged Ethan tightly and rushed out of the house. I shouldn't have believed Jack's words. "I'm sorry, Ethan." I went home and laid the exhausted Ethan in bed. Then I called my mom to vent about everything. Meanwhile, I heard nothing from Jack, who was left at the in-laws. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. "Sis, can I come in?" "Sean, what's up all of a sudden?" "Mom told me to come here. I brought some bread from home." Sean was there with bread from our family bakery. He told me I must be tired and to go over the household chores for me. He also cheerfully took care of Ethan, who had just woken up, improving both our moods. "You're a lifesaver, Sean." "It's no big deal, we're family." Also a message from Mom. She said, "You can always come back home." Hearing that, I felt relieved knowing I have such a dependable family. Jack returned a few hours after Sean left. He had conveniently eaten at his parents' house before coming back. "Ethan and I were really hurt this time. I'm really sorry. But Dad and Mom didn't mean any harm." Ethan was crying. He showed signs of remorse when I got angry. However, it didn't seem sincere and I couldn't trust him anymore. The thought of divorce crossed my mind. "Jack, it's time to wake up." "Jack?" When I woke up in the morning, Jack was gone. In his place, there was a note. "I'm going on a business trip to Chicago starting today." You could have told me that directly. Well, it's less irritating without him here. Besides, it's good for us to have some space to cool off. If he's not here, it's no problem to change the locks. This will give us some peace for a while, right, Ethan? Ethan, not understanding the words, smiled at my smiling face. With just Ethan, I didn't need Jack. That's what I thought. From then on, Jack and I began living separately. He was on a long business trip and too busy to return home. I do miss Ethan, and I miss Naomi's cooking. The distance helped us reconcile, and we started updating each other once a week via video calls. Meanwhile, I hadn't heard anything from my mother-in-law since changing the locks. I thought she would at least ring the doorbell incessantly, but she did nothing. It was peaceful, but I felt an uneasy calm before a storm. "Sis, something terrible happened." Just then, I received a call from Sean. Confused by my brother's agitated state, I listened and discovered a secret about Jack. That idiot! I'll never forgive him. Fueled by anger, I began preparing my revenge. With the help of my parents, who were informed by Sean, we successfully completed our plan in 2 days. And just as Sean and I were about to leave the house with Ethan, there was a knock on the door. "Excuse me, I've come to deliver some packages." Oh sure, just leave them here for now." A ton of packages had arrived at our house. Upon checking the names, they belonged to Jack's parents. I immediately called Jack. "Did the packages arrive? From today, you'll be living with my parents." "Good luck." What a joke. That was the first thing he said, as if I wasn't angry enough at him already. How selfish can this man be? That's the plan, so count on it. I knew what he was up to. He wanted to control me by bringing his parents into the house while he sorted out his own conveniences. Rage surged through me, but I quickly smirked. "Yeah, I just finished moving out myself." "What? I had to hold back my laughter at Jack's dumbfounded voice. It seemed he had forgotten who owned that house. Sean, listening beside me, also struggled to contain his laughter. Because, that house originally belonged to my grandparents, and I'm the owner now. Oh, so who exactly do you plan to cohabit with without permission? I'd never let such people into my house. A mother-in-law who enjoys making her daughter-in-law's life miserable, and a father-in-law who tosses his grandson around. Grandson around? And you think I knew nothing? You'll definitely pay the price for this. Who would live with a husband who cheats on business trips? Wait a minute. You moved out. Exactly as I said. I've already sold that house. What? Why would you do something so drastic? My parents are supposed to arrive there this afternoon. Apparently, he had planned to force cohabitation without my consent. The reason why I hadn't had any surprise visits from my mother-in-law recently must have been because she was busy packing for the move. Dealing with all the clutter at my in-laws' house must have been a hassle. But well, that's not my problem anymore. Don't mess with me. The one messing around is you and your parents. Their packages are at the front door. Bye. With that, I ended the call. He tried to call back immediately, but I blocked his number and all other contacts. Sorry for the wait, Sean. It's okay. Come on, let's go. I owe Sean so much. It was thanks to him that I found out about Jack's affair. Sean had gone to Universal Studios in Orlando with his girlfriend, and there he spotted Jack cozily arm in arm with an unknown woman. I hadn't seen my brother-in-law since the wedding, but he was a regular, so I remembered him. He took evidence of the affair and let me know. Then, with my parents' help, I got straight to work. Among the regulars at our family bakery was a private investigator, who got us more evidence. And through the PI's connections, we found a lawyer. A real estate agent, a friend of my father's, quickly got to work on selling the house. That house had been renovated before you two moved in, sparkling from top to bottom. There's a school nearby and it's walking distance to the station, so it'll sell high and fast. Dad said, true to his word, the house sold quickly. The handover was supposed to be today, but then all those packages from my in-laws arrived. And home. Welcome back, Naomi. And you too, Ethan. Both of you, welcome home. You must be tired. Thanks to my parents' warm welcome, I let out a sigh of relief. And home, I said with a smile, and Ethan also raised his cheerful voice. Everyone laughed in response. Now all that was left was to fight back. I'm gonna work hard, so cheer for me. Okay? To my words, Ethan kept smiling adorably as usual. Oh, Naomi, are you working at the shop today? Yes, I am. Please buy a lot. Then I started working at the shop front while taking care of Ethan. The regular customers greeted me with smiles. Being back at the shop was a fun time for me. It was then that it happened. Naomi! Jack and his parents appeared. I stopped what I was doing, handed Ethan to my mother, and confronted them. Let's step outside, so we don't bother the other customers, shall we? I don't care about the other customers. What's with this rash decision you made? Oh, but going on a business trip and cheating is not rash? My words drew cold stares from the regular customers towards Jack. Noticing that, Jack fell silent for a moment, but then, we sold our house with the intention of living in that house. Where are you expecting us to live now? And according to Jack, it seems like it's Naomi who's been cheating. His parents accused. I was baffled by his father's words. Me cheating? That's absolutely impossible. I've only ever cared for Ethan. What are you talking about? I haven't cheated on anyone. Liz, some young guy was coming out of our house, wasn't he? The young man they're talking about is probably my brother, Sean. Hey, brother, didn't I tell you? I have a younger brother. As we were talking, Sean popped his head out from the back. Seeing his face, Jack realized and looked surprised. Long time no see, Jack. Is he really your brother? So, you thought I was cheating, so without checking, you cheated as well? The business trip was real. But during it, Jack became involved with another woman and chose not to return home, opting to nurture this new love. And then, to support this woman, you got into debt? Eh? At my words, Jack's parents turned to stare at him. Meanwhile, Jack turned pale, wondering how I knew. I did my research unlike you. You ran out of our joint account money and resorted to a loan, right? Was it $40,000? When I last checked the account, there were only a few dollars left, which was shocking. I had been covering our living expenses with my child support payments and my salary before maternity leave. That money was in my personal account from before we married, securely saved so it couldn't be touched. In our joint account, we had agreed to save regularly for Ethan's future expenses. But this is too much. Then shall we let others decide? I sold the house I inherited from my grandparents, which Jack had unilaterally decided to share with his parents while he was busy with infidelity and accumulating dang debt on his business trip. Which of us is at fault, huh? At my words, the regular customers glared at Jack and his parents. Realizing they were in a bad position, they backed off. Could you please leave? I said with a smile, and they hurriedly left the shop. Having successfully driven them away, I was applauded by the regular customers, and I blushed with a shy smile. After that, I filed for damages against Jack for the affair and for disturbing the business at our family bakery. Jack, burdened with debt from his affair, couldn't pay, and his irresponsible parents had no money either. So they had to sell whatever they could to scrape together some money. I really regret it. Please help me, Jack pleaded, clinging to me. I sighed deeply at his behavior. Do you expect me to trust your regret? No, this time I really am. Just stop it. If you persist, I'll call the police. In my words, Jack's shoulders slumped in defeat. I gave him a cold look. I know why you wanted to live with those two so badly. At my words, Jack visibly shivered. His parents had always complained about their small house and wanting someone to do household chores. In essence, they wanted to live in that house with me as their housekeeper. Meanwhile, Jack, who was always outwitted by me, thought he could control me with his parents around. He probably planned to use the money saved from living expenses for his own purposes or to pay off debts. Maybe he even intended to search for my savings account from before we were married. Am I wrong in my thinking? How do you know all this? Being in customer service means observing people. Besides, I married you because I loved you, even though you approached me. I always pay close attention to someone I've loved, even once. I know how you think. Jack looked down, crestfallen at my words. Then he tried to lash out at me. But before his hand could reach me, someone stepped in to stop him. That's going too far, Sean glared fiercely at Jack. Sean had been practicing martial arts for a long time and was in great shape. Jack grabbed and glared at Bashan, completely lost his nerve. Don't ever show your face to my sister again. Sean shouted at Bashan. Jack left with a pathetic cry. Thanks, Sean. Don't mention it. Let me know if anything else happens. I'll drive him away. Sean's smile seemed so dependable. You used to hide behind me and cry all the time. Come on, stop it. I'm an adult now. Plus, I have someone to protect, right? Just don't become a man like him. Sean laughed at my words, saying, Of course. He would surely protect his girlfriend well. Both of you, come help out, please. Okay. Called by our mother, we returned to the shop. After that, Jack was too scared to show up around Sean. Moreover, when the lawyer handed him the divorce papers, he signed them without a fuss. We were finally divorced. Actually, the regular customers were furious about how you suffered because of Jack, my mother told me. It seems the story of what happened at the shop spread around, eventually reaching the ears of Jack's coworkers. Once the news spread through his company, Jack had no place there. Facing cold stares from his colleagues, he quit his job. I feel bad about it, so please help. I learned this through a call from my mother-in-law. I had completely forgotten to block their contact information in the midst of everything. Help with what? Well, obviously financial support. Unfortunately, I'm not kind enough to help someone who harassed me, I said, ending the call. This time, I made sure to block the number. Unable to gather the money for alimony and child support, Jack resorted to borrowing from dangerous sources. Apparently, his affair partner, thinking he was single, promptly left him. I even heard rumors that Jack and his parents were taken away by some men in black suits. Mommy, what's up, Ethan? Meanwhile, our lives were peaceful. We took turns looking after Ethan, enjoying our days with ease. The regular customers also adored him. Separating from Jack brought us happiness. Let's play with Mommy today. Ethan responded with an angelic smile to my words. Sometime later, our family grew. Sean's girlfriend came to our house. She adored Ethan. "I'm so happy to have a nephew like him," she exclaimed. "I think I can build a happy family with her," Sean said with a smile. A kind person like him choosing her meant she must be all right. If anything happened, I'd be there to help this time. We had no more contact from Jack's side. Thanks to that, our days were very calm. "Okay, Mommy's gonna work hard, so stay with Grandma today." "Okay." Now, the 5 of us would watch Ethan grow. And I once again walked forward, ready to bake delicious bread. Years later, our family grew even more. Sean and his girlfriend got married, and they had a child. Moreover, someone appeared who wanted to be with me. "If anyone makes you cry, I'll protect you." Ethan, who is grown up now, says such things. Together with Ethan, I continue to run the bakery today. Someone like you is my brother's wife? You should release him. I had thought I was getting along with my sister-in-law, but she showed her true colors when we were alone. I was taken aback by her words. I was taken aback by her drastic change in attitude, but I soon realized that this must be her true nature. My name is Jennifer, and I am 30 years old. It has been 4 years since I married my husband Michael, who is 2 years older than me. We met through work and initially lived just the 2 of us. However, after my father-in-law passed away 2 years ago, we started living with my mother-in-law. I suggested this because I thought it would be tough for her to live alone, and we lived too far away to come quickly if something happened. Besides, my mother-in-law had quite a fortune, both from her own assets and the inheritance from my father-in-law. So there was also the worry that she might fall victim to a scam. Michael was concerned as well, and since the commute from his mother's place was not an issue, we decided to move in with her. Our relationship with my mother-in-law was already good, so I wasn't worried, but living together turned out to be even more comfortable than I had expected. We had similar hobbies and got along even better than before since we both were indoor types who liked the same things. So we enjoyed our time at home together. Perhaps because of this, my mother-in-law seemed happier and laughed more often, which made Michael happy as well. After moving in, I began to do housework and also started a part-time job at a local children's facility. It was a part-time gig about 3 times a week, but being around those energetic kids seemed to uplift my spirits too. Since moving in, my days have been more fulfilling than ever. I believe living together was the right choice, but there was one problem: my sister-in-law, Emily, who's the same age as me. Emily was already married and out of the house when I married Michael, so I only saw her about once a year. When it was just the 2 of us, she often made snide remarks. Before, when there were others around, her attitude towards me was polite, so until then, I had thought we could be friends. The first time Emily directed her malice at me, I was dumbfounded. Since then, I found her unpleasant, but since we rarely met, I didn't think much of it. However, now that we were living in the same house, we saw each other often. Emily didn't live nearby, but she had been coming over almost every weekend even before. She would have lunch and sometimes stay for dinner. Although she had her own family, I couldn't help feeling it was presumptuous, but my mother-in-law, being wealthy, didn't seem to mind. And while Emily was mean to me, she didn't act that way in front of my mother-in-law or Michael. For them, she was still their adorable daughter and sister. Especially Michael and Emily, who shared a love for outdoor activities since childhood and got along very well due to similar interests. I couldn't bring myself to tell my mother-in-law and Michael that Emily disliked me. "Hey, I'm back. Oh, Jennifer, could you take care of my children for me?" So I ended up looking after her children while she spent time with Michael and my mother-in-law. Emily seemed to love her family, and perhaps because of my good relationship with them, she didn't take kindly to me, always finding chores for me to do. She never forgot to sneak in a mean comment in a whisper. "I've got 2 children, and parenting is tough. You should be grateful I'm giving you this chance to practice." Emily would come over almost without fail on weekends, knowing that at her parents' home, she could take a break from childcare and hand it off to me, acting as if she was doing me a favor. Her children were a bit chubby and rambunctious, and while I didn't mind looking after them, I was fed up with the constant snide remarks. I wanted to snap back, but but I held my tongue in front of her children. Since Emily was smiling on the surface, any retort from me could make me seem like the villain instead of her. So I kept my replies safe and stayed quiet. To outsiders, Emily and I appeared to be chatting happily, leading my mother-in-law and Michael to comment on how well we got along, to which I could only respond with a vague smile. In this close-knit family, I couldn't just say, Emily has a bad personality. And because I never fought back, Emily became more emboldened to bully me. It's good that you can practice parenting now. Make sure you do it properly, okay? And you're not just leaving all the housework to mom, right? Since you're living together, you should do it perfectly. Especially after my mother-in-law, who seemed so happy to do crafts together, it felt all the more like she was snapping at me out of irritation. Sucking up to mom, you're such an old-fashioned woman. It seems my sister-in-law believes that I have a better relationship with her mother than she does. Maybe it's because our hobbies, as well as our personalities, are similar, but I feel calm when I'm with my mother-in-law. She feels the same way, and my sister-in-law doesn't like that we get along so well, so she complains to me. Every time we meet, she always has a snide comment for me, but I just let it slide without provoking her. It felt like a child's tantrum, even though we're adults, so I never got down about her sarcastic remarks. Sometimes I do housework better and faster than she does, so her complaints often sound like sour grapes. Lately, however, the comments have started to focus on the fact that I don't have kids yet. From this point on, I couldn't brush off her snide remarks as easily. It's been about 3 years since you got married, right? Why no baby yet? My sister-in-law, with 2 children, would smirk as if her position was superior to mine, because I had none. Children are gifts, they're not about timing. I was concerned about not having children, so I tried to act unaffected in front of her. But it only made me more upset. It was disheartening inside. I work part-time at a children's facility and am involved with kids a lot. But I still wish I could have my own soon. When she brings up children, I can't come back with a clever retort like I used to. She just smirks triumphantly at me. Now into the 4th year of marriage, I have been continuously bothered by my sister-in-law's comments about not being able to have a baby, so I decided to visit a doctor. Her words had made me anxious about possibly being infertile. I have been consulting with my husband more, and he has been reassuring me that there's no need to worry. I would be happy if we had kids, but the most important thing is that you're with me. There's no need to rush. He also said, let's work on having children together. That made me feel like I had met a good man. My husband's support meant that, although I felt anxious because of my sister-in-law's mean comments, I didn't take it too seriously. We went to the hospital for tests, thinking it would be nice to get checked out, just to be sure. But we were in for a shock with the unexpected results. What? No way. I had to ask several times to make sure it wasn't a dream, but I almost burst into tears when I realized it was real. I was actually pregnant, about 2 months along. My menstrual cycle often fluctuates, so I just thought it was late this time. But I never imagined I was pregnant. I had thought that I might be infertile, so this news was incredibly welcome. I had no typical pregnancy symptoms, so the unexpected results surprised me, but my husband and I were delighted. I was more smiley than before we went to the doctor, and when we got home, I shared the news with my mother-in-law, and the 3 of us celebrated together. I stroked my still flat belly, conveying my happiness to the baby that was going to be born. With this news, all my previous anxieties vanished, and I eagerly awaited the birth of my baby. As for my sister-in-law's reaction, she continued her sarcasm when it was just the 2 of us. Maybe it was because the content of her sarcasm decreased, or perhaps she didn't like seeing me so consistently happy about my pregnancy. But she seemed out of sorts. To me, excited about the baby, her sarcasm felt like a gentle breeze, not bothering me at all. However, at the next checkup, I was devastated to learn I had miscarried. What? Why? I asked the doctor, nearly crying. I had already been thinking a lot about parenting methods and things I wanted to do with the child, looking forward to the birth, so the miscarriage was unthinkable. I had researched pregnancy and didn't recall doing anything that could have caused a miscarriage. The shock of the miscarriage and the self-blame were almost crushing. The doctor explained that early miscarriages are common. Sometimes, due to chromosomal abnormalities, they can happen even when there's nothing wrong on the mother's side. I was told not to dwell on it too much, but I couldn't help it. I had been longing for a baby, so when I finally got pregnant, I was over the moon. But after suffering a miscarriage, the joy I had been feeling until then turned into a profound shock that left me deeply saddened. My husband and mother-in-law were worried and tried to cheer me up. But because I had been so looking forward to having a baby, I found it hard to bounce back and couldn't manage to return to my normal routine. Moreover, my sister-in-law's sarcasm seemed to intensify after she heard about the miscarriage, deepening my depression. What on earth did you do to miscarry? You're not cut out to be a mother? And once you have one miscarriage, aren't you likely to never have children? What's the point of being married if you can't have a baby? She would say these cruel words with such glee, it was clear she enjoyed hurting me. Because of this, I began to despair that I might never be able to have a baby. Normally, I would have snapped back at her, but I was so down that I just took it all by myself. I tried to act normal at my part-time job, but even the kids there could tell I wasn't my usual self and expressed their concern, which only made me feel worse. I knew I couldn't go on like this, yet I couldn't shake off the feeling of being listless and devoid of energy. This distraction may have led to me falling down the stairs on my way to work, resulting in an injury that required hospitalization. I tumbled and bruised myself all over, fracturing my right arm and leg severely. Thankfully, a passerby called an ambulance, and I ended up being admitted to the hospital for a month. I felt terrible for worrying my husband and mother-in-law, who came to the hospital, looking so concerned. We were afraid you had gotten reckless because you were so down. It's a relief you're fine. You've been losing so much weight and now an injury on top of that. We were so worried. Seeing their tearful, worried faces, I realized just how much concern I had caused them. I had lost my appetite and weight from all the distress, which only added to their worries. It finally hit me just how neglected my body had become, not just from the injury, but from lack of care in general. I had forgotten to look after my skin and hair because I had no appetite. However, their words, because of my injury, made me decide to change my mindset. I'm sorry for worrying you, but I won't be down anymore. I'll recover from this injury quickly, I declared with newfound energy in my voice. Saying it out loud seemed to boost my spirits even more. Though the injury was unfortunate, it helped me to finally start moving past the trauma of the miscarriage. I was fortunate to have a private room in the hospital, which allowed me to rest peacefully, thanks to my mother-in-law, who generously covered the extra cost for it. The facilities were quite comfortable, which made my stay much easier. The beautiful flowers brought by my husband and mother-in-law also brightened up the stark white room. Since my dominant arm was out of commission, they often visited to keep me company and brought things I could enjoy without using my right arm. I started practicing writing with my left hand, and although it was inconvenient due to my injury, I was able to spend my time comfortably. My coworkers from the part-time job also visited, and the children sent a card with their clumsy handwriting saying, "Get well soon," which warmed my heart. The thought of showing everyone a healthier me after getting out of the hospital filled me with vigor. However, the one thing that still caused me stress was when my sister-in-law visited alone. She would never say anything mean when others were around, but alone in the room with me, she could be quite nasty. With no way to escape in the private room, I felt trapped. It didn't feel right to call for a nurse for such matters, so I just had to endure her snide remarks until someone else came or she decided to leave. She would often come just to deliver her unpleasant comments, which made me wonder if she had too much free time on her hands. But once, when I pretended to be asleep, she left soon after arriving, so I began to fake sleep whenever she was expected to visit, which thankfully reduced the number of her nasty comments. Finally, the day came when I was set to be discharged. You're going to be out soon. We were thinking of throwing a little celebration party for you at home once you're out. What do you think? My husband and mother-in-law suggested excitedly. Wow, I can't wait, I replied, genuinely touched by their thoughtfulness. Emily will be happy to hear about your recovery. She's been worried about you, my mother-in-law said, which meant even Emily would be there. It made me feel a bit disappointed, but my in-laws were oblivious to Emily's treatment towards me, so I couldn't really express my concern. I wasn't thrilled about my sister-in-law coming over, but I figured as long as I wasn't alone with her and stuck close to my husband and mother-in-law during the party, it would be okay. When I got home from the hospital, the house was already festively decorated with bright, colorful flowers, which lifted my spirits for the first time in a while. The table was full of delicious-looking food, some cooked by my mother-in-law and some bought from stores. Right when everything was almost ready, my sister-in-law arrived with a big bag in tow. Sorry I'm late. Congratulations on your discharge, Jennifer, she said with a perfect smile. And I thanked her with a smile of my own. Despite being taken aback by her previous snide remarks in my hospital room, I was amazed at how amazing her acting skills were. We all sat down, glasses filled with drinks in hand. Here's to Jennifer's discharge. Michael toasted, and we started our meal. I didn't drink alcohol because of my injury, but the other three were pouring it liberally. Especially my sister-in-law, who brought her own and drank generously without bothering me, which made me feel relieved that the meal would go smoothly. Even with my right hand out of commission, I managed to eat by myself thanks to the easy-to-use utensils my mother-in-law had prepared for me. And my left-handed skills had improved. As the food started to dwindle and we were about to wrap up, my sister-in-law handed me a gift. Oh, I almost forgot. This is for your discharge. Open it when you're alone, she said with a flushed, drunken face. Thanks so much. She had a lot of baggage, considering it was just alcohol. But I never expected that my sister-in-law would have the idea of celebrating my discharge from the hospital. I was surprised that she had thought to give me a discharge gift, as it had not crossed my mind she would do something like that. Wow, a discharge gift? That's sweet. Thanks, Michael said, sounding impressed and a bit tipsy. My mother-in-law smiled happily at what seemed like a caring and close-knit family scene. After that, my sister-in-law excused herself to use the bathroom before heading out. My mother-in-law and Michael told me to take it easy and sit while they started cleaning up. With my injury, I took their advice and sat on the couch, looking at the present she had given me. It wasn't very heavy, wrapped in flower-patterned paper with an orange ribbon, which was a cheery combination. However, I had my doubts. It was unusual for my sister-in-law to give me a gift, and her whispering, "Open it when you're alone," sounded downright suspicious. With her out of the room, I decided to open the present right away. Inside, I found items that were peculiar to receive as a present for my situation, which made me pause in confusion. "What is this?" I exclaimed, dropping the gift in shock. "What's wrong? What happened?" Michael and my mother-in-law rushed over, confused as they looked at the dropped present I was pointing at. I didn't think I could explain it well, so I pointed to the present I had dropped. Then they looked at it curiously and seemed just as confused as I was. Inside were baby items and craft supplies. Sure, I hadn't given up on the idea of having children one day, and I did enjoy crafting. But it had only been 6 months since my miscarriage. And with my injury, I couldn't even do crafts if I wanted to. The contents were so mismatched for a discharge gift. Giving baby items to someone still recovering from a miscarriage and an injury felt like a deliberate insult. Had I not been on the path to recovery, seeing those baby items could have devastated me. They were also confused because it was not intended to be given as a congratulations on my discharge from the hospital, considering my situation. The perplexity turned to anger when we found a message card inside. It should have contained uplifting words, but instead it was filled with malice from my sister-in-law, who said that a useless wife should just leave. She even suggested that I try having kids or doing crafts if I can. Huh? What? At first, they were both stunned into silence, perhaps because they had thought my sister-in-law and I got along well. But it wasn't long before they started to get angry about what Emily had done. Just then, Emily came back from the bathroom and entered the room, which led my husband Michael to confront her. "Hey, what were you thinking giving this to Jennifer?" he demanded, his voice thundering in sudden anger. Emily looked confused at first, but upon seeing the gift wrap in Michael's hand, she seemed to realize what had happened. Huh? You opened it? I told you to look at it when you were alone. However, whether it was because she was drunk or just didn't care, Emily didn't seem the least bit sorry and instead complained to me. Michael's anger only grew at her attitude. How could you give such a thing? What were you thinking? But Emily, undeterred, and as if it was the most natural thing to say, retorted, well, it's pointless to have a wife who can't have kids, who's hurt and lost her worth, who can't do anything right. You should just divorce her and marry someone better. Despite Michael's intense shouting, Emily remained calm and continued to insult me. She even went as far as to tell Michael, I can introduce you to someone nice. Delighted with her own suggestion, Emily started laughing out loud. Michael, red-faced and fists clenched, seemed too furious to speak. In the midst of this, we heard my mother-in-law Jennifer's sigh. Then my mother-in-law, who appeared to have calmed down, said softly, almost to herself, I'm going to cut ties with you. At the word cut ties, Emily looked at me triumphantly, mistaking my mother-in-law's intent as agreement with her. That's right. We don't need someone like her in the family, she said, and started laughing again, but she froze at my mother-in-law's next words. I'm cutting ties with you, Emily. What? Emily's confusion was evident, and suddenly she seemed to sober up and began to panic. Why? We're family, right? If anyone should be cut ties, it should be her. It should be Jennifer, not me. Emily protested, unable to accept the idea of being disowned, but my mother-in-law continued firmly. Someone who cannot think of others' feelings, who hurls such malice, is not a part of our family. Please do not bother me again, because I will not be purchasing any of your husband's products anymore. That will hurt us. Your buying affects my husband's sales. Emily's husband was in sales, and thanks to Jennifer, often obliging Emily's requests, she regularly purchased the products he sold, which were not commonly bought due to their high price. Emily cried and pleaded, as stopping these purchases would impact her husband's performance. Stop it. We're family. Think of my children, they'll suffer too. You're no longer a sister or a part of our family. Don't show up in front of me again. In his rage at Emily's insults towards me, Michael dragged her out along with her belongings and locked her out of the house. They ignored her knocks and pleas to be let back in. She lingered outside for a while but eventually left, presumably going back to her own place. Later on, Jennifer informed Emily's husband that she would no longer purchase his products, explaining the recent events. This led to Emily being severely reprimanded. She had been a homemaker, receiving an allowance from her husband, which now seemed to have been cut off. The lack of spending money and the stern treatment from her husband seemed to have left her distressed, causing her to act out and making her increasingly unwelcome among her own parents and family. It's obvious that being mean or harassing others will make you disliked. I no longer meet with Emily, but I hope she takes this opportunity to reflect and change. Afterwards, Emily persistently tried to contact Michael and Jennifer, but they soon blocked her calls. They even went as far as to cut ties with her. Michael and my mother-in-law also apologized to me for not realizing sooner how Emily had been treating me. In turn, I apologized for not confiding in them about it. Once Emily was out of the picture, I stopped being harassed, and free from stress, my injuries healed, and I was able to return to work cheerfully. The children were delighted with my return, and that made me happy. 2 years later, I finally had my longed-for baby, and I was moved to tears. While I'll never forget my first baby, I am determined to cherish and care for my new baby. Emily is beautiful and smart. She is our only daughter. We don't need a failed, ugly thing like you. Saying that, my parents, with my sister in tow, left our house, leaving behind me, just 14 years old at the time. Being explicitly told I was unwanted, tears overflowed. Always compared to my sister and deprived of love, as a child, I had no choice but to cling. I had no choice but to cling desperately to my parents in order to survive. However, I never imagined that they would leave me behind and walk out. What was I supposed to do now? Then I remembered my grandfather, who had always showered my sister and me with love when we were younger. "Grandpa," I cried out, I was abandoned because I'm ugly. Please help me. What are you talking about? Don't worry, Samantha. You're not ugly, my grandfather reassured me. Just you wait and see. Fast forward 6 years, and just as my grandfather had predicted, I transformed so much that even my parents were shocked. I became a top model. And then, unbelievably, my parents started asking me for money. But I didn't give in. I was no longer the timid child I used to be, because now I had strong and important allies on my side. My name is Samantha. I just turned 20 this year. I have an older sister, Emily, who is 3 years older than me. We used to be close when we were younger. We would wear matching clothes, hold hands, and rarely fought. We always played together as close sisters. Emily had a beautiful face with fair skin, large double eyelids, and a straight nose. In contrast, I had a very ordinary plain face. Additionally, while she was petite, I was tall. We were two completely different. As she grew up, Emily became somewhat of a local celebrity, known for her beauty among our neighbors and schoolmates. When she was 12, our parents, proud of their beautiful daughter, entered her into a national beauty contest, just out of curiosity. She didn't win the grand prize, but was awarded the runner-up. It was not Emily, but our parents who were over the moon. Wow, amazing, Emily. You could become a supermodel or maybe an actress. Thanks to Emily, we'll be rich, they exclaimed joyously. Of course, when Emily became the runner-up, I too jumped for joy with her. Big sis, you're amazing. Anyone can see how cute you are. I'm so proud of you, I said. Thank you, Samantha. You're cute too. You're tall. You'd be more suited to modeling, Emily complimented me. I was truly happy to be praised by my sister. Emily then slowly started modeling. She wasn't in high demand immediately, but as a kid model, she got called for a few magazine shoots. As the days went by, my parents began to neglect me. Until then, I thought they were normal parents. They seemed to care for us both equally. But their attitude changed drastically after the beauty contest. I was aware of this change even as a child. During mealtimes, delicious food was laid out in front of Emily's seat. In addition, my mom would calculate calories to ensure she didn't gain weight, planning a diet for her. Planning a diet with her health in mind, but all I got was ramen noodles. Even during dining out or vacations, they would only take Emily, leaving me behind. Can you believe it? This situation, back then, I was just a grade schooler. My mom always dressed in designer brands, and my dad drove a fancy imported car. Yet, in front of me, they would say, "We don't have money for your food, or we can't afford to take you on trips." They said Emily is going to be an actress or a model and take care of us in the future. We want to feed her well and make lots of family memories on trips now. But you, Samantha, you're just going to be an average Joe. It's a waste to spend money on you. But leaving a young daughter alone at home to go on a trip would be a huge issue if it got out. Not wanting my parents to get caught, they usually limited their trips to 1 or 2 nights, leaving me with some instant ramen and money for food. They never bought me clothes either. I always wore Emily's hand-me-downs. They always bought cute clothes for Emily. Emily, concerned for me, once said, "This dress looks better on you, Samantha, so I'll give it to you." It was a really cute dress, and I was over the moon. But when my dad found out I got the dress from Emily, he was furious. "Why are you wearing that dress? Did you steal it from your sister?" "Dad, no. I gave it to her." Emily quickly covered for me, but Dad's anger didn't subside. "That dress only suits Emily. It's a pity to see you wearing it. Give it back right now," he demanded. Suddenly being yelled at, I, still quite young, was terrified. But Emily stood up for me, saying, "I love Samantha. Don't talk to her like that." Okay, sorry, Emily dear." "Don't be mad," Dad said, apologizing only to Emily, never to me. Emily looked at Dad with contempt, but he seemed oblivious to it. After that incident, Emily tried to interact with me as little as possible in front of our parents. Maybe she felt responsible for getting me yelled at for giving me the dress. But despite such harsh discrimination in my childhood, I had happy moments. Dad was always late coming home from work, but Mom was a stay-at-home mom, always around. So, after my parents had gone to bed, Emily would sneak into my room at night. We'd chat and hang out, just like old times. Those moments with my favorite sister were precious to me. But then there were times I'd call hellish. That was when Emily had piano lessons. Dad once said, if she's beautiful and can play piano, she'll be unbeatable, and made her take piano lessons. I took piano lessons. As for me, I knew my parents wouldn't bother with lessons for me, so I never asked. Of course, they weren't interested in me and never suggested anything. So when Emily went to her weekly piano lessons, it was just my mom and me at home. Without Emily to protect me, my mom's attitude towards me got even worse. One day she said, Emily is so cute, but you, Samantha, you just have such an average face. But I was so frustrated and sad I couldn't stand it. Stop comparing me to Emily, please. Gathering all my courage, I tried to stand up to my mom for the first time. Tears spilled from my eyes without me even realizing it. Seeing me like that, my mom laughed. What's with that face? You look even uglier when you cry. Who on earth did you take after? I mean, I am unmistakably the child of my parents, taking after both equally. If anything, it's Emily who doesn't resemble our parents at all, looking nothing like them due to some kind of throwback gene. She's too beautiful. Yet my parents dote on my beautiful sister, who doesn't resemble them, rather than me, who does. I mustered all my courage to speak up, but their words shattered my heart instantly. After that, I never talked back to my dad or mom again. Months passed in this way. Emily is going to be a high schooler, starting in the fall. Being smart, she was going to attend a prestigious public school. I wanted to go to the same high school as my amazing sister, but it was a high hurdle. Still, I studied hard, but my mom's words easily shattered my efforts. We're moving to New York soon. I was confused, thinking it was just another trip, but she said, just so you know, we're not coming back. This house will be handed over to someone else in a week. Wait, are we moving? That's right. Emily got scouted by an agent from a famous agency in New York. She'll get to take lessons to polish her acting and expression skills. Then she'll have a chance to audition for dramas and stuff. My mom's eyes sparkled as she spoke, but since it's an agency in New York, she's giving up the high school she was going to attend here and will go to a school in New York instead. Wow, that's amazing, Emily. Then I guess I need to rethink where I'm going too. Thinking about the high school I had been working hard to get into and realizing I couldn't go there anymore, I felt a bit down. But then what my dad said next was unbelievable. What are you talking about? You're staying here, so no need to change your plans for further education. Well, that's if we could even afford to send someone like you to school. What? What do you mean? Aren't we losing this house? Aren't you, Emily, Mom, and Dad all leaving for New York? And what do you mean by affording my education? We're not taking you to New York, and we have no intention of paying for you to go to high school. That's what we're saying. I was confused and couldn't comprehend their words. Wait, so how am I supposed to live from now on? What do I know? You're old enough to figure something out on your own. I was shocked that my dad, at my mere 14 years of age, expected me to fend for myself. But I can't live alone. I can't even go to school. Why is it always Emily who gets everything? I shouted these obvious truths at my parents, hoping they would understand. But as usual, my mom just laughed at me. Emily will definitely succeed, so if we think of it as an investment for her future, we don't mind spending a lot of money. But you? What do you have? You're just an ordinary person. Do you think someone like you will succeed? Of course not. It's a waste to spend money on you. Stunned by my mom's words, I couldn't hold back my tears. Then my dad added, Emily is the only daughter we're proud of, smart and beautiful. We don't need a failed, ugly thing like you. No matter how unloved or discriminated against, I loved my parents. After all, they were my only mom and dad in this world. I wanted to be loved and tried hard. I thought if I could at least be smart or good at sports, maybe they would care. I wished to be a normal family again like in the past, holding on to hope even as I nearly gave up many times. But being clearly told I was unwanted, I realized my wishes would never come true, and tears filled my eyes. Seeing me crying, my father said, even if Emily wants to take you to New York, we will never take you with us. If she asks you to come along, you must refuse, got it? But I couldn't believe it. Did they really want to get in the way of my sister's success? But I started to protest, but my father cut me off. You want to ruin your sister's future? We won't have the money for her if you come along. Are you okay with that? It was an awful thing to say. My father had the audacity to suggest that I would ruin Emily's future. Now that I'm older, I know that's not true. It wasn't my fault. I might have been able to say that, but back then, I was too young to stand up to my father's words. Emily wasn't there that day. With her modeling jobs, piano lessons, and cram school for exams, she was increasingly away from home. The terrible words from my parents were spoken when she was absent. I was in despair. Then, a week later, the day came when my parents would leave for New York without me. The day came when my father, mother, and Emily were leaving for New York. Emily had always thought, of course, I would go with them. But as I made no preparations to leave the house, Emily asked, "Is something wrong?" Then my mom announced, "Samantha isn't coming to New York with us." What? Why? Emily was shocked and wide-eyed. Because she doesn't want to leave her friends. But of course, she wouldn't want to. She's graduating in a year and wouldn't want to transfer schools now. In front of me, my mother blatantly lied. "Samantha, is that true?" I wanted to say no, I want to go with you. But my father glared at me like a demon, and I was too scared to speak. After a while of silence, my father hurried us. "Come on, it's almost time for the train." While I stayed silent, I thought about whether I should say I wanted to come. But my heart had already reached its limit. Living every day being compared to my sister was unbearable. The thought of those days continuing was too much, and I didn't want to get in the way of my beloved sister, no matter what. I made up my mind. Yeah, I don't want to leave my friends. "But how will you live by yourself, Samantha?" Emily looked at me with concern. Then my father said, "It's okay. Your aunt and uncle said they would take care of Samantha. They'll come to pick her up soon. No need to worry, Emily." I had never heard such a thing. I doubted whether my father had even contacted my aunt and uncle. Emily gently offered several times, "Shall we go together?" "If you're not going, I'll stay here and we can live together." But I shook my head. Staying with her would only hinder her future, I thought. In the end, Emily was forcibly taken out of the house by our mother. I was left behind, clinging to the faint hope in my father's words that my aunt and uncle would come to pick me up, waiting alone for hours in the cold, dim room. But as expected, they never came. It was probably just a lie my father made up on the spot. What am I even doing? What should I do now? I couldn't believe I had still trusted the words of such a terrible father. I despised myself. My father and mother left, taking only my beautiful sister with them. What should I do now? Lost in thought, I suddenly remembered my grandparents who had always been so kind to Emily and me when we were younger. Desperately searching the empty house, I finally found my grandfather's contact information. I remembered how we used to visit our grandparents' rural home every year, when our family was still normal. However, once our family turned abnormal, my parents lost interest in both my grandparents and me. Leading to estrangement, calling this number was a gamble. I wasn't sure if it would still connect me to my grandfather, or if he would be willing to help. With trembling hands, I dialed the number written on the note. I didn't have a cell phone, so I had to go to a nearby payphone. My heart started pounding wildly. "Ring, ring." "Hello?" he answered. At the sound of my grandfather's voice, I burst into tears and cried out, "Grandpa? Help me. What's the matter? Is that you, Samantha? Emily? It's Samantha. Dad and Mom abandoned me because they said I'm ugly. They're living in New York with Emily. What should I do?" I pleaded with my grandfather in a trembling voice. Then he said, "I'm coming right now. Just wait for me at home." I started walking back home, waiting for my grandfather. The fear of being betrayed again, the fear that he might not come, was unbearable. But a few hours later, my grandfather really did come, and my grandmother was with him. They both looked quite disheveled, as if they had rushed over. Seeing me alone in the empty house with just a few belongings, my grandfather was furious. "I'm unwanted. They said they don't need an ugly daughter like me." I couldn't help but cry again as I spoke. Then my grandfather hugged me tightly. "Don't worry. How about living with us from now on? And you're not ugly, Samantha. You're such a beautiful girl," my grandmother added. "You have a model-like figure. Be confident. You'll see, Samantha will become a wonderful woman that everyone will admire. They held me until I calmed down. After that, I lived with my grandparents. When we got home, my grandfather immediately called my father, but he didn't answer despite numerous attempts. After about 10 tries, it seemed like my grandfather finally got through, but after the call, he was furious, saying, "I don't want anything to do with such a heartless man." I didn't know what they talked about, but I could guess it was probably about how they didn't need me or how important Emily was to them. But having my grandfather stand up for me brought some peace to my heart. No one had ever defended me against my parents before, and maybe that's why it felt so good. I had to transfer schools and couldn't attend the high school I wanted to, but living in a warm home where I was greeted with smiles and hot meals every day was blissful. Though I sometimes thought of Emily and my parents, I never felt lonely, thanks to my grandparents' loving care. 6 years passed, and I celebrated my 20th birthday as an adult. I was living away from my grandparents, and I were living apart due to work. Today, on my rare day off, I decided to visit them. They were overjoyed to see me and exclaimed, "We've missed you. You've become so impressive." As we caught up, the doorbell rang, and my grandfather went to answer it. A few moments later, I heard him shout, "Get out of here right now!" Curious, my grandmother and I went to the entrance and were shocked to see my parents there. "Dan, there you are. You've grown up so much. You've become such a beauty." "Wow, we're surprised," they said with smirks on their faces. The last time I saw them, they looked quite different. My father, who used to be somewhat chubby, was now gaunt with sunken cheeks. My mother, who always wore brand-name clothes and perfect makeup, was now dressed in shabby clothes with no makeup and disheveled hair. "What happened to you two?" "You've changed a lot," I asked. "You've changed too. You used to be so ugly, and now you're all over TV. You must be rich, right? Give us some money." "That's why we came today," my parents said. "That's right. Now you're even going abroad for shoots. Give us our share, please." I had become a successful model, but it wasn't always that way. Ever since I was little, I was tall for my age. By the time I was in elementary school, I was already 5 feet 4 inches tall. After my parents abandoned me, I went to live with my grandparents. Thanks to their nutritious meals, I grew to be 5 feet 9 inches tall. Back then, I thought girls should be petite to be cute, so I felt self-conscious and disliked my increasing height. But one day, during a trip to New York with my friends, a stranger approached me and said, "Hey, you! You've got an amazing style. You could definitely make it in showbiz. Would you like to become a model at my agency?" At first, I was suspicious, but her business card showed that she was from a well-known major agency. I was shocked and excited to be scouted. When I got home and told my grandparents, they were thrilled. "Didn't Grandpa tell you?" "Samantha, you're beautiful and have a great figure. Your grandpa's pride and joy," they said. And so I left my grandparents to live in New York. Though it was sad to leave them, I worked hard, eager to show them how well I was doing. My efforts paid off, and I became a sought-after model on TV. When my parents saw me on TV and realized I was successful, they came asking for money. "Are you kidding me? Is that all you have to say to your daughter after 6 years?" My grandpa scolded them before I could. But my dad wouldn't back down. "Emily's gone. She said she was leaving for a role in an overseas drama and hasn't been back for 2 years. We've tried contacting her numerous times, but there's been no reply. And now, we've gone through all the sins that Emily had made." Upon hearing this, I burst out laughing. "So you finally spent all of my sister's savings," I said. My dad snapped back. "What are you laughing at?" I replied, "Because Emily is right here." "Long time no see, Mom and Dad," Emily said as she emerged from the back of the house. My dad asked, "Why are you here?" Emily explained, 6 years ago, when our parents took me and left, I was constantly worried about my sister. Later, I remembered the kindness of our grandparents and wondered if she might turn to them for help. I called Grandpa, and hearing her voice again made me so happy I cried. From then on, Emily and I kept in touch regularly, meeting secretly so our parents wouldn't find out. I was overjoyed that we could be close sisters again. As it turned out, Emily wanted to be a piano teacher instead of continuing in entertainment. However, our parents refused, saying you'll make more money as a celebrity. When my dad earlier said they had spent all of Emily's savings, it turned out that despite her hard work in the entertainment industry, most of her earnings were taken by our parents, leaving her with little for herself. They quit their jobs and relied entirely on Emily's income, leading a degraded life. To them, Emily was just a cash cow. I used to be envious of Emily, thinking she had everything from our parents, but I didn't see the struggles she faced, the pain of being their puppet. She didn't want to live controlled by them. She wanted to follow her own dreams. After discussing with Grandpa, Emily had moved in with them 2 years ago. So she had been there all along. Seeing Emily, our parents were as shocked as if they had seen a ghost. "You want Samantha's money?" they exclaimed. "We'll never let that happen." Confused, Emily asked, "What are you talking about? Weren't you abroad?" My parents admitted that was just a lie, an excuse to get away from you too. "Now it's our turn to leave you." I replied, "That's right, but how are we supposed to live without money?" My parents responded, "You're adults, you can fend for yourselves." Just like you told me. I threw back the exact words my parents once said to me, right back at them. Shocked, they asked, "What?" "We don't need selfish parents like you." Emily added, "We have our loving grandparents, so please leave." Saying that, Emily and I forcibly kicked our parents out of the house. We looked at each other and laughed. After that, our parents tried to contact our grandparents many times, but they never responded. I don't know how my mom and dad are living now. To us, they're just strangers, and we don't care. A year has passed since Emily and I turned our backs on our parents. Parents away. Emily became a piano teacher. She's fulfilling her dream, teaching piano to adorable kids. I've advanced even further in my career, and will be walking the runway in an international fashion show next year. I've promised to invite my grandparents and Emily to the show. At my grandparents' house, there are lots of magazine cutouts and photo albums featuring me. Emily, my biggest fan, seems to collect every magazine I'm in. She even attends my autograph sessions. "Ah, you came again?" "It costs money and it's far. I'll sign for you when I come home." I say, but she insists it's okay. "You are so busy, I want to see you at these events." For my kind and adorable sister and beloved grandparents, I want to keep shining as a successful model. My name is Susan Johnson. At the age of 35, I married my current husband, Noah, but he had a stepdaughter, Kate. Half a year after we got married, we started living with my in-laws. Since then, my mother-in-law began to harass me. Kate also started treating me like trash. Where are my things? When I returned from shopping, I found my belongings thrown in the trash. Not understanding why, I stood there dazed and then felt someone behind me. "You wouldn't leave unless I do this, right? Dad and Grandma are fed up with you. Why don't you leave quietly? There's no place for you in this house." "Kate, did you do this?" When I asked, Kate nodded proudly, as if she had one. Kate never really liked me from the beginning of our marriage. Now she is a 16-year-old high school student. It might be a rebellious phase due to her age, but it was too much. At the beginning of our marriage, we hardly spoke. But as we got used to each other, she began to treat me like trash. "You're just a parasite living off my father. I can't even introduce a woman like you as my mother. If only you were as beautiful as my friend's mother." Abusive language became normal, and sometimes she even poured garbage over my head. At first, my husband would scold her, but gradually he started looking down on me too. Then my mother-in-law became more aggressive in her harassment, and I lost confidence in myself day by day. Stress caused me insomnia, and I even started seeing a doctor for it. Talking to my husband was useless as he wouldn't take my side, so I kept it all to myself. I still lived with the family because, despite not being blood-related, I felt affection for Kate. But seeing my belongings thrown away in the trash, something inside me broke. As I stood there in shock, Kate spoke. "When are you gonna leave? Now that your stuff is gone, you can leave right away, right? But how will the three of you manage without me?" "I'll be fine with Dad around." "Still going to leech off us?" "Leeching? I thought I was trying hard for all three of you." "How so?" "Doing household chores is something anyone can do. I could do what you do." "So Kate, you're saying it's okay if I leave?" "That's what I'm saying. Seeing your face every day is stressful. Don't show your ugly face around here. Saying that, Kate threw a trash bag at me. I couldn't just divorce easily, but I decided to talk to my husband about it. However, he just laughed it off. Well, Kate's right. You've become pretty ugly since we got married, and yeah, you're just trash. Kate's pretty funny, though, doing stuff like this. Your stuff was in the way anyway. It's good he threw it out. What are you talking about? My work stuff was in there. If I can't work, the three of us can't make it. Are you saying my earnings aren't good enough? My husband looked displeased at my words. He's got nothing but pride. And it's a problem if you hurt it. I think you're working hard too. But realistically, we can't live without my income. Shut up. Just quietly do your housework and job. Talking to you is just irritating, so be quiet. What's with that tone? I got angry at his words and we ended up arguing, which eventually led to talk of divorce. Let's divorce then. Sign here. Are you sure? I don't care. It makes no difference whether you're here or not. Eventually we decided to divorce. Thinking I had to tell Kate, I called her to say I had something important to discuss. When I revealed the divorce, Kate punched the air in joy. So I can finally get rid of you. When are you leaving? Next week. Are you okay with staying with your dad, Kate? Obviously, who would want to live with a stranger? I never once thought of you as my mother. I was hurt by Kate's words, but it couldn't be helped. A week later, as promised, I left the house. I didn't tell my ex-husband and Kate my new address. Since leaving them, I've been living a mentally stable life. My insomnia was naturally cured and work became more productive. Life was going smoothly. Months after the divorce, Kate suddenly showed up at my house. Mom, something's wrong at home. You, who are you? Kate looked at me incredulously. I'd always taken her words to heart, but I didn't need to anymore. I answered coldly, "Goo, you haven't forgotten, have you?" "Well, yeah, but why are you here all of a sudden?" "The house is in trouble." "Help me, Mom. Just so you know, I'm not your mother anymore." "You said you didn't need someone like me, right?" "I'm sorry about that, but I really need your help. Please, just listen." Apparently, she found out my address by asking relatives. I was a bit angry at the relatives for telling her. Kate looked desperate when she came to the house. Reluctantly, I let her in for a talk. "So what's this about? Our home is in a bad state. Dad is terrible." With that, Kate began to cry uncontrollably in front of me. I felt no pity for her at that moment. I just stared at her with an impassive face, my gaze as cold as ice. Kate looked a bit scared. "Susan, how many times do I have to tell you? I'm not your mother anymore. Could you at least call me Susan? I don't want you to call me Mom. Why are you being so cold? You used to be kind? I had been holding back all this time. Could you have endured it if you were in my place? You should know, I was really hurt too. I'm sorry." Kate's tone, so different from her usual arrogance, was small and apologetic. I think it was the first time she had ever apologized to me. She must be really desperate, but I had no intention of helping her. "You might be having a hard time, but I'm a stranger now. I have no obligation to help. We were never really mother and daughter to begin with. I don't want to waste my time on pointless matters. Can you leave, please?" As I said this, Kate came over and grabbed my arm. "Don't say that. Right now you're all I have. No, Susan is all I have. Dad is really awful." Then, without being asked, she started telling me about what had happened after the divorce. "Ever since you left, Dad started bringing young women home, flashy young women from nightclubs. He's cold to me, and he's always with her instead of me. They even go on trips together on weekends. Did you know Dad was cheating on you?" We fought about it several times. Dad had been cheating for over a year. That long ago? Why didn't you divorce? I thought it would be too hard on you, Kate. I could see you struggling. I had realized about half a year ago that my ex-husband was cheating. I accidentally saw him shopping happily with a young woman I didn't know. After that, I secretly hired a detective to investigate his infidelity. It turned out he was heavily spending on a 25-year-old woman he met at a nightclub. They were physically involved too, and when I confronted him, he admitted it without excuses. He even blamed the affair on me. I cheated because you lost your charm. Unlike you, Natalie is beautiful and has a great figure, and she's amazing at night. If you were just a little prettier and more charming, I wouldn't have needed to go to another woman. Maybe I did stop caring about my looks a bit after we got married, but that's no excuse to cheat, right? If you want to be loved by me, act more feminine. Then I'll break it off with Natalie. After I learned about my ex-husband's affair, my love for him naturally faded. I thought about leaving right away, but I couldn't make that step because of Kate's education. Kate was attending a top private school, keeping her grades at the top. She planned to study a science major in college, which costs a lot more than the arts. She was working hard and I wanted to support her. But it seems she's been unable to lead a proper life since our divorce. After you left, Susan, there's been no one to cook. I've been living on convenience store food and instant noodles almost every day. Recently, Dad said we're out of money and told me to make do with one meal a day. Yet he and that woman live lavishly. Indeed, Kate had lost a lot of weight since I last saw her. Her complexion was bad, her skin rough, and her clothes were wrinkled. Kate probably hasn't been able to do laundry properly, as she used to rely on me for household chores. Since I left, it seems she's had to handle all the household work. And there was another change in the house. Actually, Grandma's health has gotten worse, and she's almost bedridden now. Dad says he doesn't want to waste money, so he's left all the caregiving to me. Because of that, I can't study and my grades have dropped. My ex-mother-in-law had always been in poor health when I lived with them. I started living with my in-laws to keep an eye on her health. But she never thanked me, not even once. Instead, she would throw the food I cooked and constantly berate me every time we met. Looking back, I never want to return to that life. I think I endured a lot. While she never complained about Kate, she seemed to be having a hard time with the caregiving. I can't keep taking care of Grandma forever. I have my own life, you know? Dad is just terrible, only thinking about himself. But you chose to stay with Dad, didn't you? It's hard for me to do anything about it. Dad told me to give up on going to college. I've always worked hard in my studies. Isn't that terrible? I think you've worked hard, but if Dad says it's impossible, maybe you have no choice but to give up. I can't just give up like that. And Dad even said I'm too expensive to keep around and told me to leave. What are you going to do about Grandma then? She'll have to go to a facility. Dad said it's much cheaper than paying for my college tuition. You're into sciences, and the college you want to attend is private. I think it's hard for Dad to come up with the money. But I can't just give up. I've worked so hard until now. Saying this, Kate began to cry bitterly. I felt a bit sorry for her, but this was the life she chose. There's nothing I can do. Then, looking around the house, Kate asked me something. I've always wondered, how can you afford to live in such a big house? Weren't you a part-time worker, Susan? Actually, that's not true. Bruh? I run a real estate company. This property is one of the many I own. A president? I never heard anything like that. I kept it a secret on purpose. Your dad has to be the top dog, right? So he told me to keep quiet about me being the breadwinner. That was the case. So all this time, you were the one paying for our living expenses. At first, he paid half, but about a year in, he stopped contributing. I've been paying for your tuition, too. I never mentioned it because I didn't think it was necessary. Oh my, Kate looked surprised by the truth I revealed. I had been the president of a real estate company since the beginning of our marriage. Back then, I didn't earn much, just a little more than my ex-husband. But about 6 months in, my revenue started to soar. And now I make about $10 million a year. I never expected to be this successful. Of course, my ex-husband knew about my success. As my income grew, he became colder and likely jealous of my success. Yet he spent my money like water. Later I found out he was spending it on his mistress. I've already claimed alimony from both my ex-husband and his mistress. I received a lump sum payment from him after the divorce. He paid for his mistress's share too. That's probably why he's strapped for cash now. So you're more financially stable than Dad, right? Well, I can certainly afford to live well enough. Why do you ask? Please help me. I won't ask to live with you, but I need financial support and a place to stay. Don't be ridiculous. Why should I, a stranger to you, do all that? Talking more won't change anything, so could you please leave? I don't want to waste my time. Besides, seeing you reminds me of the past. Do you really hate me that much? Kate asked, her eyes brimming with tears. I hesitated for a moment on how to respond. Well, it's true, I don't like you. I wanted to care for you as my daughter when we were married. But things didn't work out. Got married, but you never saw it that way. I'm tired of it. Then Kate grabbed my arm again. I can learn to like you now. I know I've said terrible things, but we can start over. Please help me. It seemed like Kate wasn't planning to leave until I agreed. To avoid being stuck with her, I decided to call someone. Who are you calling? Your dad. I can't have you staying here indefinitely, so I'm asking him to pick you up. Calling Dad is pointless. He prefers that woman over me. So do you plan to stay here forever? Well, I have nowhere else to go. I've been imposing on friends, but I can't live with them, right? You're the only one I have, Susan. As she said this, Kate's eyes filled with tears. Ignoring her, I began to call my ex-husband. He didn't answer at first, but after persistently calling, he finally picked up. I'm glad you finally answered. What do you want, Susan? We're strangers now, aren't we? We're divorced, so don't call me. I don't want to hear your voice. He sounded quite annoyed. I'm not calling because I want to. All right, what do you want? Can you get to the point? My ex-husband asked in a cold tone. It sounded like his mistress was there too. I could hear a woman's voice. Ignoring that, I decided to talk about Kate. Your daughter is at my house and causing trouble. She says she doesn't want to go home, so can you come pick her up? I've told her to leave, but she won't budge. Is Kate there? My ex-husband muttered disinterestedly. I'm in a fix here. She's asking for help, but we're not family anymore. If you come, she might leave quietly. Can you come now? What a hassle. Right now, I'm out having dinner with Natalie. Do you want to interrupt our time together? You can go to dinner anytime, can't you? Don't joke with me. We're at a fancy steakhouse. You're not feeding Kate properly, but you're eating well yourself? So what? It's my money. Are you sure you can afford to waste it like that? Shut up. You're a stranger. Stay out of it. Fine. Just come and pick up Kate. I have no intention of keeping her. She's your daughter after all. Then my ex-husband laughingly said, if she likes you that much, why don't you take care of her? I was thinking of living alone with Natalie anyway. Kate is just in the way. How can you say your daughter is in the way? Even if I were to take care of her, I'd bill you for child support. And I'll also charge you for the money you spent without permission. Wait. My ex-husband started to panic. I was told by my ex-husband that in exchange for paying the alimony in a lump sum, he wanted me to overlook the amount of money he had spent recklessly. Initially, I wasn't convinced, but he insisted, so I reluctantly agreed. The amount he had squandered was about $60,000. Since it was an amount I could recover by working immediately, I decided to forgive it. Fine, I'll come now, just forgive the money. Remember, if you don't come today, I'll send you the bill. Got it. I gave him my address, and he agreed to come and pick her up. My new home was about a 3-hour drive from where we used to live. He finally arrived at night and was shocked at my house. You live in a place like this? He exclaimed. Looks like you're doing well. I replied, well, I've been living a bit more luxuriously, since I don't have to spend on you three anymore. But this house is too lavish. You were making only around $200,000 a year, right? He didn't know exactly how much I was earning. I never told him on purpose. But now that we're divorced, there's no harm in telling him. I honestly told him about my current earnings. You make that much? He asked in disbelief. You might not have known, but I've been working hard. Now I have a few trustworthy employees, and everything is going smoothly. He looked frustrated. Still as competitive as ever, I thought to myself, he's stuck with just the work assigned to him in the company, so no wonder he's not getting promoted. I reminded him to take care of Kate, who was standing behind me, unwilling to move. It seems she still didn't want to go back. I sighed in exasperation. Your father has come all this way to pick you up, so please go. You don't belong here. As I spoke coldly, Kate started crying with her head down. But my ex-husband had a different idea. If you're making $100 million a year, you must have money to spare, right? He asked. Then help us out. I was taken aback. What? Why would that follow? I asked. We were a family once, right? Shouldn't you have some feelings for us? He continued, "We're about to go bankrupt here. I can't even buy Natalie the things she likes anymore." I replied, "If you're short on money, why don't you get more work? Your company allows side jobs, doesn't it?" He scoffed, "Don't be stupid. I'm tired enough with my regular job. Just give me the money." He raised his voice, demanding money, but I had no intention of giving him a single penny. "Shouldn't you be the one paying me?" I reminded him, "Have you forgotten that I forgave $60,000 you squandered?" He tried to justify his request, but with $1 million in earnings, a little bit won't hurt. Right? You probably don't even have a use for it. I replied firmly, "Even if I make that much, a good portion goes to taxes. And I don't have extra money to waste on you. Just take Kate and leave." He always gets loud and angry when something doesn't go his way. I used to be too scared to talk back, but now that we're strangers, I'm not afraid. If you keep making a scene in front of my house, I'll call the police. There's a station nearby, and they'll come quickly if I call. The police? If I tell them my ex-husband is causing a disturbance, they'll act quickly. If you don't want police trouble, it's better you leave now." Reluctantly, but not wanting to deal with the police, he gave in. "Kate, let's go," he called out to her without even looking at her. Kate looked at me with a pleading gaze. "You should go too." "Don't ever come here again, Mom." Kate's eyes were tearful as she looked at me, but I wasn't going to help her. I kicked them out and locked the door. I don't think I'll ever see them again. I want to forget about my life with them as soon as possible, and I don't regret it at all. Since then, my ex-husband apparently broke up with his mistress quite unceremoniously. The breakup happened when she found out he actually had no money. He had boasted to her about being an elite earning $200,000 a year. But when she saw his bank balance, the truth came out. Turns out she wasn't in love with him, but his perceived wealth. She had other men she was seeing, and she quickly moved on to another. Moreover, my ex-husband had been in debt due to his spending on the mistress. This left Kate unable to even attend school, and she had to quit her private high school. She started working at a place where even a junior high graduate could get a job. As for my former mother-in-law, the two of them couldn't take care of her, so they had to put her in a facility. They managed to scrape together the money for it by borrowing. I heard all this through acquaintances, and of course there's been no contact from them since. As for me, my business is doing well and I'm enjoying my peaceful single life. I'm looking forward to enjoying a luxurious solo living for a while. My name is Naomi. I've been married for 6 years. I'm pregnant with our third child. When my husband found out about the pregnancy, he said, "I hope it's a boy this time. Make sure you bring one out," as he stroked my belly. Life was full of happiness until then. When I was 5 months pregnant, and it was about time to find out the baby's gender, he started saying, "Hey, we're gonna find out if it's a boy or a girl at your next checkup, will you?" He seemed to really want a boy, and said that, but I thought, as long as it's a healthy baby, whether it's a girl or a boy shouldn't matter. I simply thought so, but it seems my husband didn't think the same way. When my husband came home, I told him the results of the checkup. I found out the gender. "Oh, so it's a boy. It's a girl." I thought he would just laugh it off. But the reality was different. "Why is it a girl? What do you mean?" "I can't control that. You're useless." "Useless? Do you want a boy that badly?" "Of course, who's gonna take care of us when we're old if it's not a boy?" "Girls get married off. If we don't have a boy, who's gonna take care of us in our old age?" That's what kids are for, right? To take care of their parents when they can't work anymore. There's no point in raising them if they won't support us. What are you saying? Do you think of kids as tools for parents? Of course, that's what kids are for, to support their parents. A girl won't do. I was shocked. I never thought he would say such a thing. Children are born to be happy, not to live for their parents. That's what I believe. So I thought Michael thought the same. We don't need that. What? We don't need a girl. What? I could tolerate his disappointment, but this was unacceptable. It was outrageous to hear his words. "You're joking, right? Why would you think it's a joke?" "I don't need a girl." I thought the same when I found out our first two were girls. That's how you felt. That's why I'm saying we don't need that. It's not a joke. I won't throw away a life that's been born. Can't you listen to me? Yes, I can't listen to you on this. Fine, I don't care then. Since then, my husband has become cold. He never was big on helping with housework, but everything changed once he found out our third child was also a girl. Hey, I'm feeling heavy. Can you help out a bit? Are you kidding? My husband didn't support me for every little thing. He started coming home late, as if he hated being at home. He even started treating our daughters coldly, and they began to avoid being near him. And then not long after, my husband came home laughing and showed me an unbelievable paper. What's this? A woman who can only give birth to girls can't even read, huh? If I'm not mistaken, this is a divorce paper, right? Yeah, that's right. It's a divorce paper nationwide. Why did you bring this? I want a divorce. Why on earth a divorce? I'm carrying our third child, you know? Huh? I know. That's exactly why I'm telling you to divorce. I don't even want to see you anymore. I don't even want to see a girl. How can you say that? It's your child, isn't it? I want a boy to take care of me when he grows up. How can you think of something so awful? Am I the awful one, or are you just clueless? I don't know about that. Why suddenly like this? You never said anything like this before. If you say so, I'll tell you. Actually, I have a mistress. My husband said this with a smug look, seemingly not thinking it's bad to be cheating. And that mistress is pregnant with a boy. What? Cheating is problematic enough, and now you say she's pregnant? Yeah, that's right. A female belly only brings future worries. Basically, you're useless. Useless because I only have girls? That's right. That's why it's a divorce. That's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous at all. I've decided to live with her. This is too terrible. Your child is in my belly. I know that. But it's a girl, right? A girl is no good. I've said it many times. Children are not tools for parents to be looked after. Right? If you think so, then take all three. Just don't cry when no one looks after you in your old age. Shocked by my husband's words, he pressed me to contact a lawyer for divorce. No matter what I said, his mind seemed to be made up. Thinking this, I agreed to our divorce. But a week later, I got a call from my mother-in-law. Naomi, I was surprised to hear that you decided to get divorced. Are you okay? I don't know what to do anymore. It's too much to think that I have to raise 3 kids alone, especially with the third one on the way. That's true. You don't have parents to rely on, do you? It must be tough. I don't have parents. When I was young, my family was in an accident during an outing. I was the only miraculous survivor. So I grew up in a facility and finally met my husband Michael, and had a family to call my own. That's why I cherished our children and took care of Michael. I'm sorry. My foolish son has done something unthinkable. My mother-in-law seemed genuinely pained. It's not your fault, but it's going to be tough for you now. Listen, Naomi, if it's okay with you, would you let me take care of the grandchildren? What? Because you can't just leave the kids alone when you give birth, right? I'll help if you want. Thank you so much. In truth, I thought of my in-laws as my real parents. Even when they scolded me, it felt comforting, like they were teaching me what I didn't know. The thought of parting from my mother-in-law due to divorce was painful, but she reached out to help me. So I was able to give birth safely and started working for the sake of my children. Of course, my in-laws take care of the kids while I'm at work. After 6 months of getting my life back on track, I went to the hospital for a baby checkup with my mother-in-law. I wasn't expecting to meet Michael. Oh, isn't that Michael? My mother-in-law said, holding my child's hand. Look over there. He looks like a man tired of fighting, all slumped over. Oh, you're right. The children, upon seeing their father Michael, hid behind my mother-in-law. It's okay. Grandma will protect you, she said, approaching Michael. I followed, and when I approached and spoke to him, Michael looked at us with empty eyes. Michael, what's wrong? I asked. Mom, you too? What are you doing here? Michael replied, Mia just gave birth. Mia is the woman who was Michael's mistress and is now officially his wife. Really? Congratulations. Was it a boy? Yes, but it's not good. What do you mean? I asked. Because of his legs. Michael said, holding his head in his hands. His legs are bent. He's defective. How can you say such a thing? I exclaimed, if his legs are bent, he can't walk, can he? The doctor said it's congenital clubfoot, I explained, calling him defective because of congenital clubfoot. He definitely can't walk. He's a child with a disability. What's the use in raising him if he can't take care of me in my old age? It'll just be a burden on me. Michael had left me because he wanted a son and not a daughter, and now he's saying even a son with a disability is not good enough. How selfish can one be? I thought, you were so happy about having a son, and now just because he has a disability. I was happy when I heard it was a boy, and thought I could finally relax. That's why I was there for the birth. You were there for the birth? I asked. You ran away from being there for me. So, he didn't want to be there because it was a girl. But when I saw the baby, how could I not be shocked? I said, trying to understand. You fool. Children aren't your toys. A disability isn't something a child chooses to have. As a parent, you should accept and raise them properly. Taking care of a child like that will only be hard. It would have been better if it were a girl. How can you say that? I asked, feeling hurt. Going through all this trouble and not being taken care of in old age, isn't that just my bad luck? Children aren't tools for parents' old age care, I reminded him. Look at yourself. You left home and do whatever you want, yet you talk selfishly. I'll take care of you properly. I'll put you in a nursing home, so don't worry. You fool. Is that what you call taking care of someone? If all you want in your old age is a nursing home, then having a disabled child shouldn't be a problem. It's not that, Mom. Before I can even think of a nursing home, I'll run out of money. With a child with such legs, I don't even know what I'm working for. You really are. Children are born to be happy. Parents should be thankful just for their children's smiles. Enough with the preaching. I'm scared of becoming unable to work. What will I do then if the child is a girl or disabled? That's why I needed a healthy boy. You mean the reason for our divorce was because Naomi only had girls? That's why? Yes, that's right. Girls are no good, and neither are disabled ones. I must have raised you wrong. I never thought you'd turn out to be such a fool. I'm not wrong. It's Mia's fault for giving birth to such a monster. Don't you think there might be a problem with your own genes? My genes are fine. The 3 children over there are proof of that. In the end, it was Mia's genes that had the problem. I'm so unlucky. Naomi can only have girls and Mia can only have disabled children. I'm speechless, completely. I'm breaking up with Mia. What? I'll divorce her and remarry another woman. Yes, that's what I'll do. Then I'm sure to have a healthy boy. I can't believe it. Naomi, you did the right thing divorcing such a fool. Staying with him would have been meaningless. It would have only made the children unhappy. Yes, you're right. Hearing all this, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I didn't think he could be this terrible, but now I know breaking up was the right decision. Let's go to the baby checkup. I'm sure they'll say he's growing up healthy and strong. Yes, we left the scene. It seems things got pretty rough for Michael afterward. After all, he said such terrible things to Mia, who had just given birth. Mia. Michael, look at our baby. Isn't he just like an angel? His face is cute. Looks like you. I'm glad he was born healthy. Healthy? What are you talking about? What's healthy about this? Well, yes, he has a problem with his legs, but I'm sure he'll be cured. Cured? No way. Even if it's not possible now, treatment can start once he grows a bit. Then he can live without any major problems. Do you have any idea how much that's gonna cost? Raising children costs money, that's just how it is. If he could take care of me in the future, I wouldn't mind spending, but who knows how he'll turn out. He's not worth the investment. How can you say that in front of our child? What's a newborn gonna understand? If he understands what I'm saying, he must be a genius. This child has been hearing voices since he was in my belly. That means he can hear now. Even if he doesn't understand, he'll know you hate him. Really? Then maybe it's better if I'm not around? Why, right after the birth of our child? It's your fault for giving birth to such a disabled child. I wanted a healthy boy, and you gave me a child with twisted legs. He's not a monster. He's adorable. To me, he looks like a monster. No matter how much we try to fix him, he won't be able to run properly. What kind of job can he get in the future? Physical labor is out of the question. Unless he's smart, but who knows? At least being able to do a physically demanding job is the basis of life. Jobs are a long way off. I think the future is closer than you think. It's clear we think differently. Staying together is just tiring. No, this child was born out of our love. You can't just complain about his looks and demand a divorce. To raise this child, we need to work together as a couple. Then you shouldn't have given birth to such a disabled child. That's terrible. Anyway, I want a divorce. Please divorce me. No, I won't. We'll make this child happy. What about my happiness? My happiness hit rock bottom when he was born. Don't I have the right to be happy? Our happiness should be raising this child. That's your happiness, not mine. Aren't you a parent? I'll remarry a woman who can bear a healthy boy. What? You've been cheating? I'll start looking now. How could you betray me? You betrayed me first. I didn't betray you. You did. I wanted a healthy boy and you gave me a disabled child. That's a huge betrayal. You can't predict what kind of child will be born, so your genes are the problem. I don't plan to have children with you anymore. That's ridiculous. If we had a second child and it was a healthy boy, great. But the odds are low. My first wife only had girls. That means you'll only have disabled children. I don't want to gamble like that. What am I to you? What is marriage to you? To me, a woman is a partner to build a family with, not just a tool to bear healthy boys. Marriage is a contract for that. Those are the worst words I've ever heard. I can't believe you. Now that you understand I'm the worst, you'll agree to a divorce, right? No, I won't divorce. I need your income to raise this child. I can't do it alone. If you won't divorce, I won't come home until you do, Michael said and left the hospital room. Afterwards, the divorce talks continued and Michael repeatedly left home, realizing they were at an impasse. Exhausted, Mia visited her mother-in-law. Please help me, she said, looking utterly drained and downcast. I happened to be visiting my in-laws, so it was my first meeting with the mistress, but I couldn't muster any hatred for her. Oh dear, what happened? I asked. Come in, thank you. The baby in Mia's arms seemed to sleep peacefully and looked angelically adorable. Babies are cute no matter their circumstances, I thought, and said, he's adorable. Who's this lady? I asked. That's Michael's first wife, Naomi, Mia replied. I was told when she realized I was the ex-wife. She widened her eyes in surprise. I'm so sorry, truly sorry for taking your husband away. That's probably why I'm suffering so much now. I did something terrible. No, it's okay, I reassured her. Don't bow like that. Besides, I don't hate you, and I think divorcing him was the right decision. Yes, at first I did resent and even curse you, but then your child was born, and I happened to meet Michael at the hospital. Hearing what he said then, I realized that divorcing him was the right decision. Seeing Mia so worn out, I couldn't help but feel a kinship with her, also a victim of misfortune. And my anger rose even more towards Michael, who took women so lightly. Come in, the baby might catch a cold. Let's warm up inside and have something hot. Let me make it. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you, Mia said gratefully. She went into the living room and laid her baby in the crib next to my daughter. They look like siblings when they're sleeping, I observed. Yes, they're half-siblings, aren't they? Hearing our easy conversation, she couldn't hold back her tears. Thank you for accepting me. I never thought Naomi would accept me. Well, Naomi is a big-hearted mom, I said. Oh, and the older grandkids are out with Grandpa, so we can talk freely. That's a relief, Mia said with a sigh. Grandpa's hobby, I added, trying to lighten the mood with a bit of laughter to calm Mia's heart. My mother-in-law's warmth was deeply felt. It's hard to believe such a wonderful person could give birth to someone like Michael, I said. So what did you mean by asking for help? Well, Michael wants a divorce because our son has a disability. Did you ask why? Yes, he said it's because of our son's disability. What did you say? I said that children should be raised by both parents. And he didn't agree? No, he wants to divorce and remarry someone who can give him a healthy boy. Does he have someone in mind? No, he said he's gonna look for someone. That's just foolish. But I don't want a divorce. It may sound selfish, but I need his income to raise our child. I understand, but that will only make you and the child unhappy. But I want to take our child to a specialist when he's a bit older. We'll need his support for that. And if I become a single mom, it will be tough. Then who will look after the child? I'm not sure if any daycare would take my son. That's a valid concern, so I think divorce is not an option. But Michael insists on it. That sounds like Michael, only thinking of himself. But how will a child raised in such an environment turn out? Even if you don't know anything yet, what lies ahead? Is he providing financial support now? No, he hasn't even come home, let alone given any money. I see. After a brief silence, it was the mother-in-law who broke it. You really should divorce him. But growing up in such a situation isn't good for the child. For the child's sake, you should divorce. And it's not just about divorcing. Let's get revenge. Revenge? Yes, including Naomi's frustration. Let's get revenge for both of you. How? Well, with an evil grin, my mother-in-law laid out her plan for revenge. Soon after, Michael was summoned to the in-laws' house under the pretext of enjoying his mother's cooking. It's been a while since I had Mom's cooking. Mia's terrible at cooking. Naomi was a bit better, but Mom's the best. Michael sounded happy, unaware of what awaited him. I could hear him from the next room where I was waiting. He entered the living room, puzzled to see no food on the table. Isn't it ready yet? Before that, there's someone I want you to meet. With that, Mia entered the living room. I stayed in the next room to hear Mia's performance. In the living room, Michael's surprised voice could be heard. Why is Mia here? I invited her. It's better to have a meal together, right? Mom, she won't listen to me. I don't want to eat with her. Naomi was better. She agreed to the divorce right away when I said I wanted to. Don't worry, Mia agreed to the divorce. Yes, I've decided to divorce. That's different then. If you had told me, I would have brought the divorce papers. No need to worry. Here they are. Mom, you're always prepared. All I need to do is check it. Easy. Better do it before you change your mind. Yeah, Mom's always on my side. Michael signed happily, not knowing what was coming. Of course, Mia will be living with the baby. Mia will be the one who is living with your son. Originally, I didn't want such a monster anyway. I have no objections. Good. Then how about paying a settlement of $30,000 and child support of $500 a month? Sign this agreement. You want a divorce to remarry, right? Paying child support is only natural. $500 a month is too much, isn't it? Not at all. The child needs treatment. You would have had to work for that treatment money if you lived together. And no time for affairs or remarriage. It's only natural. Be thankful. Now you can find a woman who can give you a healthy boy. That makes sense. If $500 a month makes that possible, no problem. But you have to pay in a lump sum. That's impossible. How much would that be? $6,000 a year until the child graduates college. So 24 years. He might not even go to college. In this day and age, everyone goes to college. It's almost certain he will. But what if he doesn't? If he doesn't, then just refund the money. Mia gets to keep the payments up until he turns 20, and then she can return the last 2 years worth $24,000. That sounds fair, doesn't it? Is that really possible? Mom's watching over everything, so it's fine. Well, if Mom says so, then sign the agreement to pay me the child support and settlement. Okay, but I'll need to take out a loan from the bank, so it might take some time. That's understandable. Reluctantly, Michael signed the document. Great, now I'm free. I'll have some debt, but I can manage. My income isn't bad, right? Mia's settled, so Naomi, come out here, please. When I entered from the next room, Michael was even more surprised. Why is Naomi here too? Don't be so shocked. Since you're paying Mia, you should also pay Naomi. It's only fair. But it's been a while since Naomi and I divorced. It hasn't even been a year yet. The mom. Naomi should get $500 a month for each of the 3 kids. Are you saying that's also in one lump sum? Of course it is. Naomi is raising 3 kids bound for college. $500 a month per child is the least you can do. Frankly, it's not even enough. There's no way I can borrow that much. Then find a way to borrow it. Why don't you lend me the money, Mom? What are you saying? There's no way I can lend you money. Your father and I won't be able to work much longer. Who's going to take care of us in our old age? I will. You're going to be busy repaying a huge debt. You won't have time to take care of us. We have to manage our own retirement. So don't worry about us. How am I supposed to manage my retirement? That's why I can't lend you money. The government says you need a sufficient amount to retire comfortably, even with a pension. And with everything getting more expensive, we can't afford to waste a single penny. But what about my retirement? It's simple. You're going to remarry a woman who can bear healthy boys. You won't have anything to worry about in your old age. That's true, but I won't be able to live like this. Can I at least stay in this house? No. Naomi and Mia will be living here. I plan to live happily surrounded by my 4 grandchildren. You being here would disrupt that plan. No way. Michael looked utterly shocked and dejected, a fitting punishment for taking women so lightly. I guess he got a punch for making fun of a woman. I thought it was just a glimpse. After taking out a loan of over $600,000, Michael was left working day and night to repay it. He was a mess, too busy to even think about a new woman. 20 years later, 4 adults cooperated to raise the children to the end. My daughters grew up healthy, caring for Mia's son like siblings. Mia's son, after receiving specialized medical care, is now living normally and even attending a prestigious college. Apparently he knew his background, and now he's aiming to become a lawyer to help women in difficult situations. When Michael heard this, he suddenly showed up, thinking his son, now a law student, could take care of him. But the children, fully aware of his past actions, completely rejected him. He ended up living a lonely life in a shabby apartment. As for us, we continue our unusual communal life. We never expect the children to take care of us. We live happily as we are, always filled with laughter.